And super excited to jump into today's video of how to stop beating yourself up. And this has kind of come off the back of the Empowered Women's group that we ran last night, and we had the beautiful Jo Cochran come in and share a bit about her story and just some really great wisdom as well, and be as funny as anything. I think everybody that was there really had an incredible night. And what I noticed, what I kind of was really tuning into, was how often we have those anxious feelings, or how often we can kind of beat ourselves up, or how often we can have those feelings of not feeling good enough as well. So this can be really obviously impacts so many different areas. Number one, it impacts our own personal happiness so much. It impacts our relationships, because guess what? If you're not feeling great about yourself, we're either going to be shaming and blaming either ourselves, or shaming and blaming others in a way to escape or avoid our own pain. Or there's going to be, obviously jealousy, or just negativity within the relationship, or feeling like you're not good enough, or feeling like you're going to be left behind, or you're going to be abandoned. There's so many different mechanisms and coping strategies that the mind actually comes up with. And good morning to everybody that's jumping on here. Hey Justina, great to have you on here. And Amy, lovely to see you on here. And gorgeous Erica, and we got there Ben. Hello Ben, lovely to see you on here as well. So super important, guys, in really, and please say hi if you're just jumping in, and of course send me some love for a Friday, or if this really resonates for you, like who's got an inner critic? I can definitely put my hands up, but send me some love if you've got an inner critic as well that, gets really noisy at times. And one of the questions that I kind of pose to you right now is, because the challenge with the inner thoughts is, like, we believe them, right? Like, that's what causes the pain, that's what causes the suffering, is you become so consumed by actually believing, or starting to believe, those thoughts to be true. And the more that you have a thought, the more you look for the evidence to support how that thought is actually true, and then it becomes a belief. And when something is a belief, it's undeniable. You're looking for the evidence, and therefore finding the evidence everywhere. And so much of our world is created through these thoughts, because how we feel, and therefore how we interact in the world. And this was kind of like what I was saying, came up really evident as well. Hey Tara, lovely to have you on here. And sorry, I'm really struggling with my eyes this morning. That's really funny. Hey Deb, lovely to have you on here. I'm having trouble reading. I can't, Jason and Kylie. Sorry, darling. Great to have you on here as well. So of course, like I was saying, we can really start to believe and get consumed by believing this particular identity of who we actually think that we are by the inner critic's thoughts. Now, I'm going to pose this question to you. Who is listening if somebody else is talking? So if you've got a voice in your head, who else is actually listening to that? And that starts to give us a little bit of a clue that we're actually separate from the thoughts that we actually have. There's an observer in us. And one of the strategies that I'll give you guys, like straight up, in how to actually start to step back, and this is why mindfulness or meditation, everybody's so like, oh my God, you have to meditate and everything else. And in truth, like, I've been meditating for years, and I do find it particularly helpful. When I first started meditating, like, I could only meditate for like 2 minutes because my head was going nuts. I was in fight, flight. I had a lot going on. I was just a brand new single mom. I was terrified beyond terrified about my finances, about being able to cope. My mum had just passed away. There was a lot actually happening at the time. And I was like fully in full-fledged survival. So I started meditating at like 2 minutes, and I would just be sitting there and I'd be fuming. Like, this gives you like an indication of where I was at vibrationally and energetically and emotionally. I was just fuming because I'm like, this is dumb, this is so stupid, like I've got way too much to do to be sitting here. Like, who's had that experience when you started meditating? Like, send me some love or some likes if that resonates for you as well. Hey Denise, great to have you on, and Juanita, lovely to see you on here, and yep, Deb, we've got on here. So, you know, this is, it's really tricky, like with meditation, but the blessing with meditation, or why meditation is so important, is it starts to help you to understand you are not your thoughts, you are not the inner critic, or you don't have to believe those things. They're just fleeting things that are passing by just like a cloud. And when you sit there and you observe them without getting emotionally hooked, one of my daughters was saying to me that somebody said to her once, thoughts and feelings can literally be like something coming into a room and then walking out of the room again. And it's not unless you actually grab onto the thought and say, hey, sit down with me at the table and let's have a chat. And now you're actually immersed in that. Now you're actually consumed by that. If you can just observe it walking by and go, huh, that's kind of interesting, how fascinating, and get really curious around what's showing up for you, then you can start to discern, hey, there's obviously another part of me which is actually observing all of these things. And whether the thoughts are good or bad, or, you know, again, that is the ego survival mind just making a judgment of, oh, that doesn't feel very good, or that feels terrible. Whereas when you're observing, you're in a much more non-judgmental phase, because you're actually observing from the truth of who you actually are, which is the silence, which is the background upon which all things appear. Now, try not to lose you too much with that lingo, but like, it's really important to remember that you are the observer. And if you find yourself immersed or consumed by negative thoughts, start to try and stand back or step back from that by imagining that you're watching yourself watch yourself at a movie. So that's like a really cool thing. If you imagine that you're in a movie theater and you can see yourself watching what's going on, what you think is going on for you in a movie, now you've actually taken a step back. Now, if that still feels like suffering, if it still feels painful, if you still feel really emotionally hooked by whatever you're experiencing, you can take another step back. And so that's watching yourself be on the movie screen. And so it's just a really great strategy. It's a really great tool of just being able to step back, because that's the thing. Once we're emotionally hooked by a behavioral program or a pattern of thinking or an identity that we've created within ourselves. So if you feel bad, if you feel unworthy, that is a pattern, that is an identity. It is not the real you. And it's really important to be able to distinguish this. And it's one of the things that I'm so passionate about teaching, simply because we can over-identify. Now, if you've got stuff going on with your body, if you believe that you're too fat, too thin, too this, too that, need to be prettier, like whatever the story is, and that was my biggest thing that tripped me out for years. It was the area where I felt like I just wasn't enough. Now, for some of you might be going, like, that's just nuts or that's crazy, but that was my reality. I literally, every time I would look in the mirror, I truly, honestly believed that I was fat and ugly. And I had that thought from, 13, well, actually probably a lot younger. I still remember as a 5-year-old sitting in the bath, pinching rolls of fat on my stomach and just feeling so disgusted and so ashamed of my body at 5 that I literally wanted to, and this is quite graphic, sorry, but I literally wanted to get a knife and cut it off. Like, it was just, I still remember having some of those thoughts. That's how overly identified I was, or I had associated with my lovability as a person, to be able to be loved and accepted in the world. And this is where the ego survival mind gets really noisy. And if you've got a noisy inner critic, hey Sandra, great to have you on here as well too, honey. And if anybody's got any questions, please jump in and just let me know. But like, one of the things is really, really important to understand that that you are not those thoughts. You are not the inner critic. It's so important to really understand that, and to start to question, and even separate the self, like I said, like just through actually observing what's actually going on for you, what you're experiencing, or what the belief or the thought actually is. Now, what I did was use the Byron Katie work, and for anybody that's been following me for a while, you know that I talk about this a lot, simply because it is one of the greatest things that actually really truly set me free in questioning my thoughts. I'm fat and ugly. Can I absolutely know that's true? And it's like, well, obviously there's varying degrees of all of that. And so it was kind of like, well, I can't actually say absolutely yes forever. So then it was kind of like, well, how do I feel when I believe that thought? I feel rubbish. I feel terrible. I hate myself. I hate my body. I'm so angry. I'm so frustrated. I feel like I'm not good enough. I feel like I don't want to see anybody. I feel ashamed. I want to withdraw. And now this might be triggering for some of you as well, simply because you may have really over-identified with a thought or belief. But how do you feel without that thought or belief? Because guess what? The mind lets go of something when it realizes that it's actually no longer pro-survival. All of those inner critics or those thoughts about who you needed to be or how you needed to be in the world were hypnotic messages that you received from 0 to 7, because the mind, you haven't developed an analytical mind going, that's a crappy thought to like put onto myself or to believe. You've accepted it all as ultimate truth. And a lot of this stuff has just come down through generations or society or mass consciousness or just somebody saying a passing comment. And then like you've latched onto that thought and gone, oh my God, I can't ever be that. Or you've been shamed. Quite often, this is where a lot of these deep triggers come from. You've been shamed for being a particular way. And I remember feeling particularly ashamed and humiliated about being extra chubby as a child. I would literally have people walk up and grab my cheeks, oh, she's so chubby, and kind of laugh. And so I learned very quickly that that was A, who I was, and B, to be ashamed of that. And so what we actually do in order to cope with that, this is like one of the most detrimental coping mechanisms that we have, is we fracture our true sense of self and make that aspect or make that part of us wrong. So it's like, that's bad, that's wrong, that's unworthy, it's something I always have to change, or I have to hide from others, I can't let anybody see that. And this is where some of these coping mechanisms or strategies are really starting to evolve, and then we end up like with all sorts of addictions and all sorts of control mechanisms, like, you know, being so hyper focused on food and so hyper focused on exercise and so hyper focused on looking a particular way, where like it literally controls our world, and you miss out on so much of the peace, so much of the love, so much of the gratitude, so much of the blessings that's actually available to you right now in this moment, regardless of how you look, regardless of what your financial outcome is, regardless of what your relationship status is, all of those things, simply because we've bought into how the ego survival mind's inner critic wants to keep us safe. So the inner critic is kind of like a crazy drill sergeant. I've got a very loud one in my head at times, and normally it correlates with how physically tired I am, because it wants to kick my butt, it wants to keep me safe. And when you can realize that, then you don't have to like tell your inner critic to bugger off. You can just like let it know, hey, I'm here, hey, I'm in charge, hey, I can hear you, thanks very much, I understand you're trying to protect me, and you can love it and accept it. Because when we push back against the inner critic and go, you know, rack off, I hate you, stop, and now you've got two aspects of yourself fighting against each other. If you've ever decided that you were committed to do something and then you weren't showing up, and you've had that inner conflict, you know, of course that is definitely where you've got two aspects of self. Neither are actually the real you. They're just aspects of self that have been created in order to help you survive in the world or help you belong, fit in, and be accepted. So once we're really understanding that as well, hey Helen, hey Christy, great to have you on. Hey Katie, lovely to see you on here, hun. Hey Chris, and beautiful Di, loads of love to you, darling. It's really, really helpful to really understand how some of these thoughts, how some of these mechanisms can kind of start playing out. So if you feel perhaps, you know, like there's one area of your life that really plays out for you, or that you really seem to struggle with, start to analyze, start to and not necessarily overthink, but just start to become kind of curious and fascinated by what are the thoughts, what are the beliefs that you're telling yourself about that particular area. Because when we've got a lot of that going on, or when we're wanting to change something very deeply, we have a deep desire to change something, often it's because you've got some of these beliefs or thoughts about not being good enough until you get to X, or I'll be happy when. All of those mechanisms can play out, and honest to God, guys, like, it is a hamster wheel. You will never, ever, ever get off that wheel. And I certainly know that, certainly from a body perspective. I'd started doing like a lot more self-love work after my marriage broke down and my mum had passed away. I had no clue how to love myself up until that point. I didn't even know what it was, didn't even know that I needed it, had no self-awareness around thoughts or any of that stuff that was going on for me. And so like I started to improve my life, and I'm like, I was feeling really good because I was like, oh my God, yeah, I'm like getting better here and I'm getting better here. So like that was really engaging my self-esteem and my self-worth, and I felt like I was loving myself more. But guess what? I was still on the hamster wheel unknowingly, simply because I couldn't accept myself in the moment for who I actually was. I was excited about who I was becoming, and all of that was quite resourceful because it's helped me to become the person that I am today. But it still kept me on the hamster wheel. And I still remember, and many of you may have heard this story before, but I still remember a point in my life where I was like 14% body fat. I had a very visible 4-pack abs. I didn't quite get the 6-pack, but like I had 4-pack abs, and I still was so anxious and so fearful about putting on weight or losing the body that I'd created, because if I didn't have that, I wasn't enough. Now, these days, I can be really comfortable in myself and still love and respect myself. At 68, you know, I've never actually been over 70 kilos because we've all got our threshold, or we've all got our standard, and I experienced severe pain, emotional pain or emotional judgment from self and from, it felt like, from others, but we're always attracting what's going on internally. So I developed some pretty high standards for myself in how I would keep my body, simply because I'd associated with not being that way to be very painful. Now, this is where a lot of our personal standards and how we're actually living in life actually come, because everybody's got a threshold, and this threshold also depends on your self-worth and self-esteem and what you're willing to accept and allow in your life as well. Now, but where this plays out the most is if you are still on the treadmill of I'm not enough, I've still got to be better, then you can be like totally, and you know, this was one of the things that we were talking about last night is, you know, you can be a certain percentage of body fat, you can be, you know, even getting awards on stage and everything else, but still underneath coming from that fear or coming from that feeling of still not being enough in some way. And there's no getting out of that. It is a mindset issue. It's the same with money. It is a scarcity issue running underneath that the ego survival mind has got you to buy into, and that's painful when we believe that thought to be true. So the way that we exit out of this is actually through breath, through observing the thoughts, through questioning your beliefs, through coming back to your heart center and truly living from your heart. And this is where gratitude, appreciation, self-love, anytime that we're loving or appreciating anything, it doesn't even have to be ourselves. Anytime that we're in the energy of appreciation and love, now you are much, much more connected to your higher self, your inner being. The pain that we experience, the suffering that we experience in life as humans is purely an indicator of the disconnect from our true and real self that we actually are, that is already whole, that is already lovable, that is already complete, exactly as you are right now, continuing to evolve and grow, because that's what we do, right? That's human nature. It's not that you have to push more or be more or do more, so finally one day you can get to, you know, standing on the podium as feeling that you're enough. There is not ever enoughness to be able to get there when you're living from your ego survival mind. When you're in your head, you're dead, as Tony Robbins says. It creates so much suffering. You will buy into those thoughts, you'll overanalyze, you will go into a negative loop where you're looping and looping and looping, trying to find a solution. The solution can never be found in the same level of thinking that created it, in the same level of consciousness, in the same level of energy. If you're fearing that you're not enough, And so you go and do all of these things because you feel that you're not enough. You will always feel not enough. There is no solution to that. It is a mindset perception shift that has to occur, and dropping down to your heart energy to know and to feel that connection with self and the connection with your inner being that already knows you are whole, complete, lovable exactly as you are. And it is such a blessing. It is life changes just so exponentially in so many ways. First, in your internal world, because you will experience so much calm, bliss, peace, acceptance, love for self, love for others. You'll be just like, oh my God, my life's freaking amazing. It's just like, and nothing has to change. Nothing has to be different, because in that moment, you are connected to the highest part of yourself, to your real self, to the observer in you that is non-judgmental. That is the biggest distinction. And if I can give you some tips to identify or to become greater at catching yourself when you're in your ego survival mind, because I still go into mine, like it's, we have moments of enlightenment, and we can get better and better and better at that as we drop more and more of the ego constructs or the ego beliefs. Then you get to step more and more into the fullness of who you are, which is just the real you. Until that point, you're covered in layers and layers and layers of beliefs and things that it's kind of like putting on a brown coat, when who you are is really this beautiful, sparkly, shiny star that's so radiant with love. And the more brown coats that you're wearing, the harder and harder it is to actually see the real you. So we've got to start by pulling off some of those layers and coats about the identity that you've placed upon yourself, or others have placed unconsciously, or you've accepted unconsciously onto yourself. Like, oh, you're not thin enough, or you're not successful enough, or you're not smart enough, or you need to be better at this, or you should be more athletic, or you should be more successful, or you should own a fancier house or a fancier car, or should have a better partner or relationship. Like, all that stuff, guys, is just the brown coats. It's the identities of who we thought that we were, and you get to take those jackets off. You get to just release those, and it is what I'm actually really, really focused on teaching, because it was so evident to me last night, and became even more passionate about it last night, how many people are still over-identifying with their inner critic or with those thoughts, and how much suffering that produces in our day-to-day experience, and cuts us off from the connection of love that we actually really are. In truth, you are absolute love, and the worse you feel, the more disconnected you are from that ultimate truth. So isn't that cool to know? Because you couldn't feel so bad if the love wasn't already present. So it's kind of really amazing when we can kind of acknowledge that and take that in, and understand that that observer is actually the absolute love, where all things exist, where there is no judgment. Now, 5 ways to understand if you are in your ego survival mind, or the inner critic's kind of playing out. You will be experiencing either criticism, so you'll be criticizing self or criticizing other. You'll be judging self or judging other. You'll be justifying. If you've ever kind of gone, oh, well, I can't come because, oh, I've got to go do this and I've got to go do that. No, the truth never needs to be defended. Your ultimate truth is just your truth, and it's either, I'd love to, thanks so much for asking, or, it's just not a good fit for me right now. Like, there's nothing you need to justify or defend when you actually understand that, you don't need anybody else's approval to be who you are. You don't need anybody else's permission. And we're so used to looking for that because we're grown up. Our parents tell us what to do. School teachers tell us what to do. Your boss or your work colleagues tell you what to do. We're constantly bombarded with feeling like we have to abide by what everybody else is saying. No, you get to create your own rules. And I know that might kind of sound a little bit crazy, but it's literally how I've created my own life. And it's what I'm passionate about teaching at my Soothe Your Soul retreat. It's coming up at the end of April, and I'm really, really excited to be able to take 5 beautiful people. I've got 1 spot that's already gone. I've got another 2 people that are coming back to me. So if that is something that you're really wanting to dive deep into over a couple of days, there's myself and my amazing partner Tim Phillips that will be there to support you and guide you through your journey. We're going to be helping you to understand how your ego survival mind is currently playing out. Now, if you're criticizing, if you are judging, if you are defending, justifying, justifying, withdrawing, blaming, shaming. Well, that's 7 things, right? But all of those things are functions of the ego survival mind. If you feel shamed, you will blame somebody. It's the fastest way. Shame is the most difficult human experience that we have. It is the feeling that not only have I done something wrong, which is guilt, it is I am wrong. I know when I feel shame, I feel like I don't deserve to survive. I don't deserve to live. It's not that I want to end my life or anything like that. It is a deep feeling like I am so unworthy of anything in life. I do not deserve anything. I don't deserve to be here. Like, that's how detrimental shame can actually be, and it is the most difficult human experience. And I truly believe that's why Brené Brown is so passionate also in her work in helping people to move beyond shame, because quite often we can be in shame and actually not understand that. But if you feel like you need to withdraw or isolate yourself in any way, I can promise you on some level shame is actually playing out for you. And quite often we've been shamed quite unconsciously by parents or by teachers, or by loved ones. I had an experience even just a little while ago, maybe 12 months ago, where I was taking a quick video of somebody that I loved at a performance, and I had somebody come up and like literally shame me instead of just going, hey, yep, can you just pop your camera away? Like the look, everything was so shaming, and I was just like, wow, isn't it fascinating? And so subtly, some of those manipulation or control mechanisms that play out in order to try and get power over another when we feel very insignificant within ourselves. And significance is one of those things that can often play out when we're feeling unworthy, when we're feeling insecure, when we're feeling that we're not enough. Often then that's where like some of that really interesting behavior can play out when we're beneath the energy of courage. So your vibration or your energy or your emotion is under courage. So that might be overwhelm, might be frustration, it might be worry, doubt, fear, rage, anger, depression, despair, powerlessness, anxiety, any of those things. We are trying to get power from others. We've actually not come up to the level of heart energy and being able to produce our own energy at that point. And that is where you will see, if you've got 2 people with low self-worth, will literally be continually in power struggles with each other. You'll have either the bully or the victim. Now, both of them, and most people go, no, but the victim, you know, everybody feels sorry for the victim. And, you know, I absolutely have compassion around that. I lived in victimhood for a while. There is such power in being a victim as well. There's moral righteousness, there's payback in terms of, well, I'm just going to walk the higher ground. There's like, and that's that moral righteousness. There's empathy and sympathy that we get from others. We can draw so much energy from those around us when we are in the energy of victim until people get sick and tired of it. And again, I say that with absolute love and compassion. I lived there for a long time. It's a pretty shitty and hard place to live. But a lot of that comes from blaming and shaming others as opposed to taking responsibility and go, how the hell did I create this for myself? How am I going to resolve this, and how am I going to move out of this? It's about asking quality questions, not why is my life like this? Why does this always happen to me? Like, all of those questions are really problem-orientated questions. They will just elicit really shitty answers, and they're not going to move you. The quality of your life comes back to the quality of questions that you ask yourself. And so very quickly we can move ourselves from asking ourselves, number one, how did I create this from what's going on internally? How can I start to shift this? So if this has been something that, and I've really been on a ranting mode this morning, hey Kelly, great to have you on here. And hey Sal, lovely to see you this morning. And gorgeous Roz, so beautiful. And Kylie and Chrissy and Bev, so great to see you guys on here. So if you guys are feeling quite passionate about this, definitely check out the dates on your calendar. It is from the 24th to the 27th. We will be doing a deep dive, like I said. This is Soothe Your Soul. It's really about aligning your heart. It's understanding and listening to your ego survival mind, not necessarily listening to it. It's about starting to listen to your inner guidance and start tapping back into your heart center, where you can experience so much calmness, so much bliss. We will be spending the time at Vincentia. We have beach upfront accommodation. Your lunches, morning teas and afternoon teas will be provided for you. There's a beautiful kitchen there, everything else. And shops are like 150 meters away. So you can go grab your own brekkie, or, or choose to have a night out on the town, perhaps. Probably wouldn't really recommend drinking too much, simply because obviously it is a health retreat and we are trying to really dive deep into emotional things. So obviously that can be extremely or places in a place of vulnerability, which can feel very confronting. And I can certainly appreciate that. I promise we will be creating a very, very sacred space. And it is by application only, simply because it's very, very, very important to me that we have the right group of people that can all help each other, elevate, support, and inspire each other, and really allow that space to go as deep as you need to in order to get the transformation that you're wanting to. You will walk away with a super, super, super clear plan on how to overcome your negative thoughts, how to get back to your heart center, how to live more from your own inner truth. So perhaps sometimes that can kind of create like some things that need to shift or change in your external world, in how you're showing up, how you're communicating, or what it is that you want to create. So you'll walk away with a super clear plan on how to implement this, how to create this, and how to move forward with this. Now the prices are $12.97 to $15.97 because I've got a couple of variations in accommodation. At the moment there is still 2 single rooms left with queen beds in them, but you'll have a room to yourself, or there's a twin share available, which is $12.97 and $13.97 respectively, because one's a single bed and one's a queen bed. But we'll be also doing some beautiful other activities like yoga and massage. There'll be plenty of time for journaling or just hanging out and just having some time for yourself. This is so, so, so important, guys. I care deeply about this because I know that I know the pain of not living your own truth. I know that empty shell feeling of feeling so caught up in what's going on in your head that you actually don't know who you are, or you're feeling lost, or you're feeling confused, or you're so used to putting everybody else's needs first. That was certainly me. I can't be happy till everybody else is happy. Some of those thoughts can be really painful, and they can really dictate a lot of how we're actually showing up in life, or what we're allowing ourselves to receive as well. This is so transformational. I can promise you your life will never be the same after attending this retreat. So if you know that this really speaks to you and resonates to you, please for sure reach out to me, send me a PM. Let's have a conversation and see if you're a good fit for it, and if the program is a really good fit for you as well. Of course, that's my utmost. It's so important to me that and I've got a plethora of beautiful support network and other people that I can refer you to if it's not going to be the right fit for you, or if it's not quite what you're looking for. So that's obviously really, really important as well. And I was chatting with my partner about this, and I was saying maybe we can kind of share some truth bombs as well around what it takes to create a very, very deep, fulfilling, intimate, super, super connected relationship as well. And so there'll be some gold in there as well. It's been a really interesting journey. We've grown so much together over the past 4.5 years that we've been together. It's been very, very intense at times, and we've both had to learn and grow exponentially in order to create the relationship that we do have today. So if this has been something that like resonates for you, or it's been really helpful, it's helped you to understand, I can now identify that inner critic by just, if I'm criticizing either self or others, if I'm judging self or others, if I'm withdrawing, defending, justifying, all of those are mechanisms of the ego to try and protect you and keep you safe and keep you fitting in. And any time that you betray yourself in order to fit in, that's painful. That really hurts you. And I think it is the greatest conflict that we have as humans, is the need to fit in, belong, and be accepted, but also the need that we have to be and express our most unique self and to step into the fullness of who you are. And I think that's the greatest gift of what we get to share and who we get to become in this process of taking off all those layers of brown jackets and becoming the bright, sparkly star that you already are. You're already that person. There's just some layers and things perhaps that are covering over that, or perhaps you've done a stack of inner work and you can feel that shininess, stepping out a little bit more as well. And in truth, you know, we're all just walking each other home back to the place in our hearts. So if this has been helpful for you, please like, love, share it, and loads of love and so much gratitude to you all. Thank you so much for being on. Hey Joe, lovely to have you on here. Hey Pete, lovely to see you on here. And Christine and Roz and Megan and Tadia, and thank you Erica, you're always such a gorgeous soul, darling. So have a fabulous day, guys, and loads of love to you all, and have a great weekend. Bye for now.